I didn't want to feel left out. Neither player can special summon monsters from the hand or graveyard by the effects of spell or trap cards. NEKROZ Hoser. This is a floodgate attached to a body. And this card is weaker than a spell and trap floodgate because there are enough ways to get monsters off the field as opposed to spell and traps. Now, that being said, this card is not terrible, but with most floodgates, it doesn't prevent you from actually summoning monsters. But in NEKROZ, where the whole deck, or I would say maybe like 85-90% of the deck is search and utility. And all that search and utility goes into eventually ritual summoning, which this card stops. I don't doubt that NEKROZ players will end up having to tweak their deck. Now, because the deck is primarily search and utility, you can't afford to have a whole lot of tech against this. It could be as simple as just playing Fire Hand and Ice Hand in the deck. To the Shaddoll players, are you going to be playing actual water monsters? Dragon Ice comes to mind, but are you really going to do that? Are you going to play Nep Shaddoll Fusion? And are you going to play Shaddoll Core if you're not playing it already? But if you are playing Shaddoll Core, how many are you playing? This is some of the things that people don't think about. I mean, it's cool. Best case scenario, I'm going to summon this thing and I don't lose anything from summoning it. And then I have back row. Even if they're bluffs, my opponent don't know that shit. I'm just going to have these things set and be like, my dick out. Go. Floodgates are only good if they don't hurt you. And in this case, because it's a monster and it's a fusion, it requires you to have a Shaddoll fusion and 2 monsters. You're spending some cards to summon this thing. So if you expend all your resources to summon this thing, how good is the floodgate? I have no doubt in my mind. If this card is as impactful as people believe it is, NEKROZ are going to accommodate or at least consider this card when they're building their deck. Because it sucks when you just get flat out wrecked by a floodgate. That's not indicative of skill. That just says you can't do the unfair thing. Speaking of which, as I said, this is a floodgate. This doesn't stop the NEKROZ player from summoning monsters to searching. It just stops them from ritual summoning. And so in some regard, that could be considered like not playing Yu-Gi-Oh! But all I see this card is being a card that NEKROZ has to deal with. It's a fusion, so you can use defusion. You can play it when you draw it. If this card is really that big of a deal against NEKROZ, you're probably just going to see defusion in their decks just because of this shit. And it doesn't even have to just be defusion. It can be Book of Moon, it can be Dark Hole, it can be Compulsor, any of that shit. It can be a monster effect. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if NEKROZ players ended up playing more monsters that are good on their own. You know, something like Neospatian Granimo, just to bounce this thing and then do the unfair thing. This card isn't terrible. It's very, very restrictive in what it stops, as with most floodgates. This card only does something if your opponent does not have the solution. And I don't like hedging my odds on hoping my opponent doesn't have the solution. People be talking like you're going to always have like the perfect opportunity and the perfect chance to summon this thing and wreck NEKROZ. That shit don't always happen. Floodgates by themselves do not win games. Floodgates, in addition to protection, no baby devices, and a way to kill your opponent, attacking your opponent, burning your opponent, doing something that threatens their chances of winning. And just having this card out, and it is 27 though, that's some high attack. This card alone don't do that. You would be a fool to summon this thing with no back row. It don't have built-in protection like Winter does. I'm just saying. So, I'd like to thank everybody for watching. Appreciate that shit. If you want to support me or something, all I ask is that you spend a few seconds out your day to click an advertisement. The money that I make from you doing that goes to me paying my end rent to live here. And I'll be grateful and appreciative if you can find some time to help a brother out.